You make a call. It feels right. You've done this before. You trust your judgment. But the system says something different. A recommendation, a warning, a safer option. You hesitate, not because you think you're wrong, but because if you ignore it, and something goes wrong, it's on you. So you change your decision, not because you agree, because it's safer. In hospitals using systems like Epic's clinical decision support, and in aircraft guided by Airbus autopilot protections, that moment is already built into the process. In some environments, choosing differently from the system is becoming a liability, even if you're right. That's the shift, not when systems got better, when human judgment started becoming a risk. There was a time when judgment mattered, experience mattered, instinct mattered. You were trusted to make the call, especially under uncertainty, because systems couldn't handle complexity. People could. A doctor made the diagnosis, a pilot made the call, a manager made the decision, and when something went wrong, judgment was still respected, because it meant someone had taken responsibility. When human judgment guided decisions, responsibility and authority stayed with the person making the call. You still feel that expectation. You believe thinking for yourself is a strength, that good decisions come from experience, from understanding, from being able to adapt when things aren't clear. But you've probably felt a small hesitation creep in. A system suggests something, and even if you're unsure, you lean toward it, because it feels safer. Now, systems don't just assist decisions, they evaluate them, compare them, score them against patterns. In hospitals, platforms like Epic and AI-assisted diagnostic tools suggest treatment paths based on vast datasets. Doctors can override them. But if something goes wrong, that decision can be questioned. In aviation, systems like Airbus fly-by-wire protections and Boeing automated flight systems guide critical inputs. Pilots are trained to intervene, but deviations are logged, reviewed, analyzed. In finance, systems like FICO credit scoring and automated fraud detection models flag risk, approve, reject, recommend. A human can disagree, but the system leaves a record, and the more accurate these systems become, the harder it is to justify going against them. Over time, that justification starts to disappear, not because humans stop understanding, but because the system becomes the reference point, the expected path, the documented decision. What used to be advice starts becoming the baseline, and once something becomes the baseline, choosing differently no longer feels like judgment. It feels like deviation. When systems consistently outperform human decisions, following them becomes the safer professional choice. You would follow it too, even if something about it didn't feel right, because being wrong on your own carries more risk than being wrong with the system. You already experience this in smaller ways. A system suggests something, and you go with it. Not because you fully trust it, but because it feels like the safer option. It's no longer about being right. It's about being safe. The real shift happens quietly, not when systems replace people, when they become the standard against which decisions are judged. If you follow the system, and something goes wrong, you followed protocol. If you override the system, and something goes wrong, you made the decision. That difference matters, because responsibility shifts, not toward accuracy, toward compliance. You felt this pattern. A recommendation appears, you hesitate, and then you follow it, because ignoring it feels like taking on risk. In fraud systems used by banks or platforms like Stripe Radar, decisions are often made instantly, and overriding them creates a traceable exception. When responsibility attaches to deviation rather than outcome, independent judgment begins to carry risk. The system doesn't need to force you. It only needs to change the consequences of disagreeing. And once that happens, you adjust. Not consciously, but consistently. Because the safest decision is the one that can't be traced. Back to you. Nothing obvious changes. People still make decisions. Experts still exist. But something fundamental shifts. You begin to align with the system, even when you're unsure, even when you suspect it might be wrong. Because the risk is no longer the outcome, it's the responsibility. When safety becomes tied to following systems rather than exercising judgment, authority shifts away from individuals and into the system itself. Thinking for yourself doesn't disappear. It just becomes harder to act on, because the system is always there. Always suggesting, always recording, always providing a safer path. And once every decision is visible, it's no longer just about what you choose. It's about how that choice will be judged later, not in the moment. After the outcome is known, after the data is reviewed, after someone asks why you didn't follow the system, always providing a safer path. And the safest path is the one where you didn't decide. Because if something goes wrong, you can point to the system. Over time, the safest person in the room isn't the one who understands the situation. It's the one who follows the system. And once that becomes the logic, judgment doesn't vanish. It gets suppressed, quietly, consistently, until the difference between deciding and following starts to disappear. If this felt uncomfortable, it's because human judgment has always been seen as a strength. Now, in some environments, it's becoming a risk. Tap like if this helped you recognize a shift that's already starting to happen. Subscribe to become part of the Unlocked, where we explore how intelligence, systems, and power quietly reshape human control. And if someone you know still believes thinking for yourself is always the safest option, share this with them. Because the most powerful change isn't that systems can make decisions. It's that choosing differently may no longer be safe. Because the future isn't coming, it's already here.